A journey to the West. We are currently in New York. During my stay in New York, I think many people found these clothes of mine a bit unusual, but before leaving New York, I will continue to wear them. I will change when I get to Boston. It's fine if you aren't used to it. In any case, it may be because I haven't taught the Dharma like this for a long time, so I myself feel even more out of place. But there is no other way. It's just the manifestation of karma. Today we will talk about being in New York. A recollection of a professor at Harvard University. There is a professor at Harvard named Janet Gyatso. She is quite well known. On the 2 occasions I went to Harvard to speak, she was the one who hosted me. She attended my lectures previously, as they were the ones who arranged them. Later, I made a point to attend one of her classes. I also mentioned this in class. She was teaching the biography of Yeshe Tsogyal. I sat in on her lecture at that time. The second visit was likely in 2017. She served as the moderator again. I have a clip of it here. Let's take a look at how she moderated later. At the time, they were discussing a spiritual song by Jigme Lingpa, something about the moon in the water. They were explaining a spiritual song. But during the explanation, many of the international students hadn't reached a very high level yet. Even in such a prestigious university, when it came to translation, everyone was just chatting casually. Actually, in some universities abroad, it's not just one person talking incessantly from start to finish, particularly with the way some doctoral supervisors guide their students. They might mark a page in a book and speak for 20 minutes, and then the students chat and explore the topic themselves. This method is quite effective. It is a very high-level way of exchanging ideas. She did this on both occasions. It's mentioned here that she met His Holiness in 1993 and served as his interpreter. When I interviewed her recently, she shared some of her past memories. Last year I spoke with her via video call. Since then, we have met a few times. She originally wanted to attend the World Youth Buddhist Convention, but in the end she couldn't make it. This is what she recalled. She said, "That year when I was teaching at Amherst College, I hadn't yet started teaching at Harvard, because the father of His Holiness's translator fell ill and she had to go back to visit him. During the stay in New York, I served as the interpreter for His Holiness for a period of time." His Holiness spoke with a Golok accent. Those from the outside, we often refer to Amdo as the Golok dialect. Actually, Golok is a prefecture, while Amdo covers the entire Qinghai region. This is our Dokam. The languages of the Kam and Amdo regions. The Amdo dialect is the language of our nomadic areas. Currently, our Serta too, actually Serta and Golok, the Golok prefecture, are slightly different. Though you could say it's a Golok accent. In fact, there is some difference between the Amdo and Lhasa accents. There are 3 main language systems in the Tibetan areas. One is the accent of the Kam region. Areas like Kam and Lhasa use their respective dialects. Then there is Amdo, in places like Qinghai and Gansu, and the region around Lhasa. It is mainly divided into these 3 regions. So, when learning Tibetan, many people abroad study the Lhasa dialect, the language from central Tibet. Some also learn from the Qinghai side. The language in Qinghai is quite similar to ours. His Holiness was like that too. Although we belong to the Kam region, in places like Derje and Garze, their accents are quite similar. The range of variation isn't that broad. So, His Holiness spoke the Golok dialect. Janet recalled, "My Tibetan was not very good then, but he was very good at expressing himself with simple Tibetan. His thinking was also extremely clear, so I was able to completely understand him. She is a Westerner. They are actually quite impressive. His Holiness spoke incredibly fast. When Sangye Khandro translated, we were very surprised during our visit. Sangye Khandro is American through and through, yet she had no problem understanding the Amdo dialect. Later we met Choki Nyima. He is American too, and he could understand everything perfectly. Janet Gyatso is also American. They all are. Then there are those of us who lived with His Holiness for 20 years, and yet even after he passed, some still couldn't understand him. So sometimes I wonder if it's a matter of wisdom or something else, even though they didn't have an environment as convenient as ours. Here you see Tibetan monastics as soon as you step outside. But for some, except for basic phrases like eat tsampa, they can't manage anything else. I find these Westerners very impressive. You see, I was worried at the time because His Holiness generally had that Qinghai accent. In Lhasa, when they learn Tibetan, it is mostly the Lhasa dialect, but His Holiness spoke directly. Occasionally they'd ask, "Oh, what did he just say? What does this mean?" Even when Sangye Khandro was translating, she would sometimes ask Khenpo Namdrol, "What does this mean?" as she couldn't understand some parts. But for the most part, they were fine. They were truly. When we visited, these were the translators. Later, when I visited, we met various Westerners. Whether in Norway or in Colorado, some were entirely Western. But I know a little bit of the Lhasa dialect, so if I try to speak with a Lhasa accent, they understand me a bit better. But generally, it seems our Amdo dialect is difficult for those who learned the Lhasa dialect. It's like the communication between someone from Guangdong and someone from Sichuan. His Holiness was tall and well built. Her impression was, honestly, when I first met him, I was shocked by his height. In fact, Janet Gyatso is a Westerner herself. I don't know how His Holiness did it. That day in Colorado, His Holiness's majestic presence captivated everyone. So when His Holiness arrived in the West, let alone in Asia, if he had gone to Japan, well... But Singaporeans didn't mention it much. We interviewed some people from Singapore. What was your impression of His Holiness? They didn't seem to have a specific one. What about when he visited the Han region? No mention either. Westerners are already quite tall, yet many of them felt His Holiness. I don't know what the reason was. I was translating 2 autobiographies of Jigme Lingpa from Tibetan into English, and I had some questions. So I asked him my questions regarding the book. I can clearly recall one of the questions. Jigme Lingpa has 2 autobiographies, and one is called The Secret Instruction of Dakinis. I didn't understand why his autobiography was named after the speech of Dakinis, since he was clearly a man. Why would his autobiography be told in the language of a female? His Holiness patiently explained it to me. His explanation was very skillful at the time, and all my doubts and confusion were removed. I seem to have a slight memory of this. His Holiness said that there are indeed the Dakini's secret instruction and the Dakini's grand laughter. There are several different ones. But His Holiness answered her by saying that from the time Jigme Lingpa was born, he was cared for by the Dakini Ekajati. Throughout his entire life, his prophecies, his termas, and his treatises were all inseparable from her. His protector was always with him. So when he wrote his autobiography, he said it was given by the protector, be it a prophecy or an instruction. Apart from that, he didn't have a conventional autobiography of the ordinary body and mind. That should be the meaning. At the time, she didn't quite understand. Why is the title of his autobiography called The Secret Instruction of Dakinis? What does this mean? Later, His Holiness, it seems she had asked some other people as well, but perhaps their answers weren't very satisfying. This is how she put it. She recalled it very clearly. Her memory of this is quite vivid. I also remember that Rinpoche visited the headquarters of the UN. I accompanied Rinpoche along with another 5 or 6 people. The rest of us who followed also remembered this. The UN has representatives from, I think this was also in one of our videos from last year, Janet Gyatso mentioned that there were representatives from all member states in the world. When we arrived, the representative of Bhutan came to greet His Holiness and gave us a tour of the entire building. There is a large General Assembly Hall where all the representatives gather to have meetings. His Holiness was very impressed by this. He said he was amazed there was such a place where representatives of all countries could get together and discuss world issues. Nowadays, news and the internet are so accessible, but back then communication was quite isolated. We had only heard about the United Nations, but we didn't really know much about how it worked for all the nations in the world. Even though their power is limited, it has essentially become a peace-seeking organization. So His Holiness was very interested at the time. Then he asked the Bhutanese representative many questions, such as how they vote and how they communicate. He learned many details about how the UN operates. I have mentioned this elsewhere before. His Holiness loved asking questions. This is very important, even about their customs and traditions or what they eat. If it were a medicine, he'd ask about its effects. Unlike some of us who never ask anything, those with few words. Talking too little can also be a flaw. If someone brings you something, And you don't even ask if it's an offering or for blessing. It's just left there, just tossed aside. Ideally, we should be a bit clearer about everything. What is this for? What is going on here? Of course, there is no need for excessive conceptualization. One should not fall into. There should be a proper balance. His Holiness was truly marvelous. Beyond everything else, simply establishing Larung Gar 5 Sciences Buddhist Academy was an extraordinary achievement. She is absolutely right about this. Larung Gar is so large in scale, and its strength is immense. It has a pivotal influence on all of Tibetan Buddhism. Indeed, not only on Tibetan Buddhism, but also on the northern and southern traditions. We have also trained many Dharma teachers. As this Dharma slowly spreads to various places in the future, it will still play a significant role. Sometimes we see that the monastics trained over all these years will certainly produce great results in the future. Moreover, Larung Gar has an enormous number of both male and female monastics. In terms of current conditions, both southern and northern traditions, the southern tradition might have them, but gathering so many in one place is very difficult. Sometimes when we see short videos showing the magnificence of Larung Gar, it's almost intimidating. To remain so brilliant even in times like these. Surely many people feel jealous. Others are unhappy when they see it. Sometimes we feel, wow, there is still hope for Buddhism. But some see it and think, oh, Buddhism is rising, what should we do? They start looking for ways to do this or that. This is of great importance for the long-term preservation of Tibetan Buddhism. Her perspective is quite elevated. It is extremely important. Another point worth mentioning is that the series of books on female practitioners in Tibetan Buddhism compiled by the Khenmos in Larung Gar is wonderful. In our nunnery section, there is an editorial office called Arya Tara. A few years ago, they compiled a collection about female practitioners, including works from the Tripitaka and other treatises. In Tibetan Buddhism, there are about 50 books in Tibetan. They have all been received. Actually, Janet Gyatso is a feminist. When we first visited, she asked His Holiness every day about gender equality, constantly inquiring about it. She was particularly delighted that Ani Medron and Lama Mumso were monastics. She felt that men and women are equal, and that's how it should be. Later, seeing that there are many nuns in our academy, she was very happy. She once spoke to me for over an hour, insisting that the Bhikshuni lineage must be passed down by us. She asked, why can't you go and transmit it? I said it's not that simple due to historical reasons. She still holds an academic perspective, as if a simple ceremony is all it takes. She kept asking, can't you transmit it when you go back? She is particularly persistent about this, especially regarding women's issues. She has dedicated her entire life to this cause. This is also a great contribution to Tibetan Buddhism. I believe they were able to achieve this precisely because they were inspired by His Holiness and followed his noble aspiration. This was her evaluation. Let's look at the talk she hosted. There's a video. It takes about 3 minutes.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. So my name is Janet Gyatso, and I'm a professor here of Buddhist Studies at Harvard. And we're very happy to have the honor of having Khenpo Sodargye speak here tonight. This is actually the second time that he visited Harvard. He was already here in 2013, I believe. We just figured out it's been 4 years. And it's really wonderful to see him again. He was born in Kham in 1962, and he was ordained as a monk in 1985, so that means at the age of 23. And he was a student and at the monastery where he is at today, which is either called Serta or Larung Gar, which is an enormous, amazing monastery. It's a new monastery that was established by Khenpo Jigme Lingpa, who was an amazing teacher. He's now unfortunately passed away, but he established this very, very large monastery. Actually, I don't have the date when that was established, but I think it was something like the 1970s? Oh, 1980s. Oh, we have some experts here. So it's not a traditional, it hasn't been there for a very long time, but it became extremely popular and still is today. And it's also especially amazing for the very large number of women who are there, nuns. So both monks and nuns are studying there. They have a very rigorous academic program. And the monastery provides a lot of leadership for the lay people and leading certain movements in especially things that I'm especially impressed with, having to do with care of animals and also trying to discourage Tibetans from wearing a lot of animal skins and doing things of that sort, in addition to the explicitly Dharma teachings. Khenpo Sodargye is extremely knowledgeable in Buddhist philosophy, and he has studied and published books on all kinds of topics in Buddhist philosophy, in Buddhist monasticism, in Buddhist logic, and in Buddhist Tantra. And he has several books in English, and he has a very, very large number of followers who are Chinese speakers, both inside China and in other parts of the world. So it's a great honor to have him tonight, and so we look forward very much to his teachings. And they will be translated by Mr. Tenzin Gelek, who is an expert translator who works at a Trace Foundation in New York City. So thank you. Welcome.
And here is a video of an interview I did with her last year, but we won't show it today due to time constraints. She has also researched Words of My Perfect Teacher, as well as Jigme Lingpa and Longchenpa. Her research is quite extensive. She studied The Treasury of Precious Qualities and several other books. She has indeed written a few books. Next, we will discuss the World Trade Center that is gone. Let's take a look. On August 4th, 1993, His Holiness visited the world-famous Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. These two skyscrapers stood high up into the sky with 110 stories and a height of 417 meters. They were known as the windows on the world. They were the world's tallest buildings at the time, symbolizing the prosperity of the United States. They were the tallest in the world then. I recall there was another one. In which city was it? It was also somewhere else in the States. It had 70-some stories or so. I wonder what the tallest building in the world is now. Before entering the building, we saw a gift shop downstairs crowded with many visitors. As we walked over, we saw various Bill Clinton cardboard cutouts. Visitors would take pictures with them. There were all sorts of poses for these photos. There were even toys that spoofed Clinton. For instance, there was a Clinton puppet with a human head and a dog body. Some people were even riding on top of it. Since he was the president at the time, it was quite something. Later, when we visited again, we saw similar things for Trump, like little dolls of him with the body of a dog. Many of us bought them. Once bought, they could be brought through customs. It was allowed. Back then there were things like that for Clinton. Actually, it was just cardboard. In some cases you could take wedding photos with Clinton. That kind of thing existed too. Some people rode on it and so on. Anyway, there was a bit of everything. People rode on them and posed in strange ways. We asked His Holiness to take a picture too, so he put his hand on Bill Clinton's shoulder and took a picture with him. I brought this photo with me. I've kept the original this whole time. Actually, only one photo was taken then. After we returned, His Holiness said I should keep it, but at the time Khenpo Namdrol was a bit displeased. He said, "Don't take it. This will cause people to have prejudices." I wanted to take one as well, but time didn't allow for it as they were all leaving. So there were various circumstances. I originally thought about including it in a journey to the West last year, but then I thought people might talk, so I didn't. I only included the text. Personally, I feel that even though it wasn't the real person, His Holiness's expression that day, it was clear he knew it was a fake, yet he very acceptingly agreed to the photo. This gives me a sense of closeness to him. Whenever I think of that scene, it feels quite special. So no matter how many times I've moved, I've always kept it. I never disposed of that photo. In my home, there are only a few photos from that trip. I've brought it today to show you all. Later, because of a leak in the house, there was a bit of damage at the top, but overall it's still in good condition. It's quite a good photo from back then. Then we took the elevator straight to the 110th floor. There were many telescopes, and we all took turns looking through them. His Holiness also looked down. From up there you could barely see people or cars. Looking down from the 110th floor, we got a glimpse of the magnificence of New York's financial center. Further up was the rooftop observation deck. It offered an even broader view. We could not only see a panoramic view of Manhattan, but also the Statue of Liberty nearby. Did we get this then or later? I don't recall clearly, but it was definitely brought back from there. Please don't take a picture and post it online. Otherwise, who knows what it might be turned into. It's fine to take a photo for yourselves, just don't share it. As a universal symbol of freedom, the Statue of Liberty was a gift from France to the United States on the centennial of American independence. Over the years, it has become a symbol of the United States. It's a gift from another country, yet it has become their own symbol. They are quite open-minded in that regard. The World Trade Center was such stunning architecture. It took over 7 years to complete and cost about $1 billion. However, this seemingly indestructible skyscraper was attacked by terrorists on September 11, 2001, and completely collapsed within 2 hours. Later, the New York City government decided to rebuild the site. The plan included building 5 new skyscrapers and a memorial museum for the victims. I visited this memorial in November 2017. I went to this museum. Inside the memorial, there is a very large water feature. They say the names are reflected in the water. Around 2,996 people lost their lives that day. It reflects and commemorates them. In the basement, they have displayed photos of almost all those 2,996 people as a memorial, but they couldn't find photos for a few individuals, a very small number of them. A few photos were missing. That's how they finally arranged it. When I visited, I felt a very strong sense of impermanence, because His Holiness is no longer with us, and the original towers are gone as well. So it was a very poignant feeling. I also wrote about it in my diary. Now, these buildings it seems they have been continuously rebuilding. Although the World Trade Center from 1993 no longer exists, and His Holiness has been gone for 20 years, the photos taken of His Holiness there are still with me to this day. Next, let's talk about the origin of the lay Buddhist college at Larung Gar. In the past, although everybody in the land of Tibet believed in Buddhism, there was no tradition of lay people studying the Dharma collectively. Unlike in the Han region or other places, this kind of lay practitioner college was almost non-existent. One day in New York, His Holiness suddenly said to a few of us, "I have received a prophecy from Ekajati. I should build a Buddhist college for lay practitioners at Larung Gar. This will benefit many householders and guide them toward liberation. So after I go back, I will establish a lay college." I dared not ask if the prophecy was given by Ekajati appearing in person to His Holiness, or if he received it in a pure vision or a dream. But hearing this news made me so happy, because my parents were at the academy and hadn't gone home yet. At that time, after the Sukhavati Dharma assembly, my parents were in the area now known as Mani Treasure. They lived in a black tent pitched next to my house. I let them stay there. Back then I was wondering if they were still there, because I had been away for nearly 3 months. In those days there was no way to communicate. I didn't know. If they were still there, I wondered if they could live in the lay college in the future. I really wanted them to stay at Larung Gar. So I immediately registered my parents for the college. It was like creating an auspicious connection. While His Holiness was still there, I told him if my parents hadn't left yet, I would definitely have them stay in the lay college. His Holiness asked, "Will they be obedient?" I said, "It shouldn't be a problem, I'm sure of it." His Holiness said, "Okay then." After returning to the academy that autumn, he personally chose a site in the lower Larung Valley. That is where the Dharma Hall for the lay college stands now. We began the construction of the Dharma Hall. This was perhaps the first Dharma Hall for lay practitioners in Tibet. At the beginning, there were only 4 families, including my parents' family. I remember my father was called Upasaka. There was another family, Rangjung, a couple, and another one named Arno. He lived in the house that belonged to Khenpo Phonsok's mother, in that slightly elevated spot, and another called Kelsang Rangjung, so there were 4 households at the time. At the very start, it was just these 4. While the Dharma Hall was being built, they were building their homes too. I went there every day to help carry stones. I also carried timber and bought some wood. By the time the Dharma hall was basically finished, these few families had settled in. At that time, His Holiness requested that whole families could come. It started with 4 households. Slowly but surely, the scale grew larger and larger. Back then, teachers like Khenpo Mongyal, who were there at the beginning, have now grown old. We had a meeting for the lay college recently. Some of the Khenpos are getting old or falling ill. Some are feeling quite tired. So we have assigned 2 more Khenpos to help them. We selected 2 new Khenpos this year. I mentioned that for me personally, these Khenpos have been incredibly kind. They saw my parents off at the end. I am deeply grateful to them. This year we also, because the size cannot increase any further now, the government is also regulating it. But compared to the beginning, it's now a properly managed village where about 1,000 people can reside. The scale has been restricted for a long time, so that is how the auspicious connection began. The lay college grew larger and larger. Many practitioners here, through their diligent practice, experienced various auspicious signs at the end of their lives. Since then, other places in Tibet have followed this model. They also started establishing lay colleges, including my hometown. 2 lay colleges were later established there. It's the same in many other places. After His Holiness advocated for this, various lay colleges appeared. This created the opportunity for lay people in Tibet to practice the Dharma. This was also an auspicious connection from the prophecy of the Dharma protector. Well, we will stop here for today. The next class will be even more exciting. The story of the driver that follows is deeply moving.
Bandara Banma Sadar